Hang on to your seat because the fight over raising the government's debt ceiling may have you hitting the ceiling.
The average person thinks raising the debt ceiling must mean that we're running up our debt.
Well, here's something else average Americans know. When they increase their budget, they spend more. And those same average Americans have been getting their spending under control, unlike politicians in D.C. So should the government act more like you? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. Let's get right to it. Here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. We have Gary B. Smith, Tracy Burns, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with David Mercer. Welcome to everybody. Okay, John, the government raising its debt, average Americans cutting their debt. What's going on here?
What alternative universe does the president think that America lives in? Look, if you have a credit card debt and you have $10,000 limit, you've reached your $10,000, and you turn to your credit card company and say, listen, I'm borrowing money every month from my neighbor to pay off my credit card debt. Could you raise it to $20,000 because raising my credit card limit does not increase my debt? It's preposterous, the argument that the president is making here. Look, this isn't just President Obama. Debt has just skyrocketed in his administration. But since 2000, the Republicans and Democrats both, $5.6 trillion in debt in 2000, almost 3 times that right now. We are the richest nation in the world, and we are on a path that is unsustainable by this Congress and this administration that we have. Somewhere they've got to rein in their spending, just like we Americans have to do in our personal spending.
But Jonas, the government has a different role than average Americans do. Does that make a difference?
Definitely. First of all, what we just heard is actually sort of interesting because when they raise your credit limit on your credit card, your FICO score, your credit score goes up. Same with the government. If they were to raise the limit, our sovereign debt rating actually would probably go up. But the reason why the government shouldn't do what people do, yes, people have been paying down debt because we were in a recession, they were scared, less income, they don't want to borrow money to buy a car, et cetera, et cetera. The government needs to do the opposite. In a recession, they should be like, I'm going to get crazy and spend more money that I don't have and borrow it. And then when people do the opposite and get enthusiastic about the economy, start borrowing money, buying bigger houses, that's when the government should do the opposite and start to shrink their deficit and to be a counterbalance to the natural cyclicality in the economy. Unfortunately, I don't see that path triggering very soon.
Oh, okay. Gary B., you agree with Jonas's economics here?
I think Jonas's last name is Keynes because he's right out of the Keynesian playbook there. So Jonas basically subscribes to the theory that all this government spending is going to help the economy. It's not. It's inefficient spending, as we've talked about ad nauseum. What the debt limit does do, and Obama has it right, it doesn't inhibit the spending. What it does is pays for the bills already signed. But the problem is, and both parts of Congress are responsible. They pass, let's just call it $1 trillion in new spending bills, and the debt limit is only $900 billion. So they say, well, we can't pay for the trillion. We need to raise the debt limit. And it's that assumption that the debt limit is going to keep being raised that contributes to the spending. So what we need to do is at some point clamp down on this whole debt limit, stop increasing it, and have some sort of balanced budget.
But Tracy, wouldn't it be nice if you wanted to spend more money, you just took a vote of your family and said, okay, let's raise our debt that we're going to take on?
Yes, and actually still be able to sleep at night. Because I can't when I have credit card debt. It drives me crazy. You know, Brenda, I found that whole thing with the president so condescending. You silly average American, you seem to think that raising the debt ceiling increase. You're silly, you're dumb, you don't know anything, I know better. That's not true, right? And I don't care what anyone says. Increasing government spending, you want to create your shovel-ready jobs, which are still non-existent, it is not going to help us at the end of the day. Why don't we start looking at the problem here? Obamacare is the problem because no one's hiring, so therefore we're not bringing revenue. No one's got money out there. It's so simple. And yet they're so stupid down there sometimes that I just don't get it.
Well, David, the debt is now 3/4 of the GDP, which is basically the economy. In 25 years, it's supposed to be 100% of the economy. That's not heading in the right way.
And that's why we ran in June and July, we ran surpluses, actually. We're bringing down our deficits, and as a percentage of GDP, spending is at almost a record low of 15% of GDP. So we've been bringing spending down. But to John's point, with regard to the credit card analogy, one thing a family knows is that if they don't pay